Here's something that I've learned. If a goal doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. Let me say that again. If it doesn't challenge you, it's not going to change you. If it doesn't wake up something inside of you and get you fired up, you won't be able to sustain it. And if it doesn't reflect who you are becoming, it starts to feel like maintenance instead of momentum. Hi, I'm Chris LeBrun, your host of the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. As someone who's never been afraid of dreaming big and going for it all, I often find myself with a lot on my plate. I'm a husband and father, a nonprofit fundraiser, and an entrepreneur. What I've realized is my view of productivity was pretty toxic. After decades of believing that in order to do more, you had to work harder, I began to see productivity as this beautiful thing. Holistic productivity is the idea that you can accomplish your professional, personal, and purpose-driven goals in a healthy way, and doing so will make you happier and more fulfilled. Join me each week as we break down myths about productivity, share practical tips for maximizing your time, energy, and focus, and hear from others about their productivity journey. This is the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to episode number 47 of the Wholistic Productivity Podcast. My name is Chris. I'm a productivity coach and host of the podcast, and so glad that you are here for this today. Got a great episode. I'm excited about this. And, I want to talk about something here at the beginning of the show. I usually talk about this at the end, but I really want to invite you to join the Holistic Productivity community on School. This is an online platform. If you like the podcast, you're going to love School. It is interactive, and we get to have conversations there. It's not just me talking all the time. There's literally members from all around the world. We have games and contests, great resources. I would love to get you into that community and to be able to participate and learn and grow. So check out the link in the show notes. Join us in School. And again, would love to see you there. Now let's get on with this episode. Have you ever had one of those moments where something just unexpectedly clicks in your mind? I had one of those the other day sitting in a doctor's waiting room. It was nothing dramatic, just a normal day. I'm flipping through my phone, waiting to be called back. And, there's some music playing quietly overhead, instrumental smooth jazz. And I wasn't really paying attention to it because, it just kind of sits there in the background. But after a few minutes, I started recognizing the melodies, but I couldn't place them. They were songs that I knew, songs that I even liked, but I couldn't place them because they were softened, they were slowed down, they were stripped of their edge, their uniqueness. Now, don't get me wrong, the musicians were talented and the music wasn't bad. In fact, I really like jazz. I usually like the more upbeat, funky, soulful kind of stuff. But this was fine. It was good. Nothing was off key. It was calm. It was polished. It was pleasant. But it was also designed not to stand out. It was meant to be sort of ignorable, to just be there in the background. And that's when it hit me. That's when I had this realization. This is what happens to our goals. Not because we stop caring, not even because we lack discipline sometimes, but because somewhere along the way we soften them. Think about it. Those songs in the waiting room were still recognizable, but they didn't move me. Nobody was jamming out. And that's probably the idea, right? In a doctor's office, they don't want anybody getting up and dancing or moshing or whatever. But they didn't grab attention. They didn't really make you feel anything. They had been turned into background noise. And I started wondering how many of our goals have gone through that same process. They're still there. They're still technically intact, still recognizable if we try, if we listen hard enough. Maybe they're written down somewhere in your planner, but they've become so watered down to the point where they don't energize us anymore. They've become familiar, but not compelling. Safe, but not exciting. Expected, but not transformative. Here's what I realized. Most of us don't abandon our goals, we dilute them. And once a goal becomes background noise, it stops directing your life. Now, we've all had those goals, right? The ones that energize us. They captivate our thoughts no matter what else is going on. And when we're working towards them, when we're working on them, we just feel like time disappears. I've been stuck downstairs here working on stuff, and I'm look at the clock and I'm like, oh my goodness, it's after midnight. Or, I've worked on this for 5 hours. Was going to work on it for an hour. These are the goals that we achieve, right? Is it because they're more important or better for us? No, not really. It's because they move us. Because the rhythm of the goal pulls us in and gets us fired up. But somewhere those goals begin to lose their ability to fire us up. And maybe it's because they take longer to achieve than we thought they would. Maybe somebody tells us that we shouldn't be chasing our dreams, and we begin to listen to them. Maybe life gets a little bit lifey and circumstances begin to crowd out the thing that used to crowd out everything else. I've had some life situations here. I talked about that a couple of weeks ago. It's been hard to keep goals moving forward when life happens. But those hard-hitting, edgy goals that used to move us somewhere, somehow can turn into something in the background that we sort of recognize. Now, here's the important part, and I want you to understand this. We don't do this because we're lazy. We do it because we're human. It makes complete sense why goals get softened over time. We don't want to disappoint ourselves. We don't want to disrupt routines that have begun to feel comfortable. We don't want to explain to other people why we're dreaming bigger than expected, or that they expect us to, right? Not that we expect to. I've got a dream right now that's going around in my head. It's been a dream of mine for most of my life, probably since I was 10 years old. And I want to tell everybody, I want to announce it to the world and say, hey, this is what I'm planning to do over the next year. But then something whispers, is that too soon? Maybe you should wait. Maybe it's not going to happen. Maybe something is going to come up. Maybe life is going to continue to be, life, and you're not going to be able to actually do that. That's when the dream can start to fade. We don't want to risk failure. So what happens? We start adjusting the goal. We try to make it more practical or manageable or more realistic. And those things sound responsible, right? Maybe we start listening to other people or what we think other people's expectations of us are, and we start paying attention to that. But somehow, slowly, almost without realizing it, the goal loses its edge. It stops stretching us. It stops challenging us. And because of that, it stops changing us. Safety feels good, but safety creates repetition. And growth almost always requires some sort of tension. This is where people get stuck. And so we do what we think we're supposed to do. We stay busy. We check off the boxes and get things done. We try to stay active, hoping that that will make us productive. But something feels off. Because there's a difference between being productive and moving forward. Here's something that I've learned. If a goal doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. Let me say that again. If it doesn't challenge you, it's not going to change you. If it doesn't wake up something inside of you and get you fired up, you won't be able to sustain it. And if it doesn't reflect who you are becoming, it starts to feel like maintenance instead of momentum. That's when people start saying things like, I feel stuck. I feel like I've plateaued. Again, it's not necessarily a motivation problem. Sometimes it's a clarity problem. Sometimes the goal just got too quiet to lead you anywhere. And this is where I think we've gotten the conversation wrong in the productivity world. Our natural inclination is to dig in and work harder. And that's what you hear from a lot of people talking about productivity. Like, just do more, work harder. But the answer isn't to push harder. It's not to add more to your plate. It's not to fill every hour of your day. I believe the real shift comes from alignment, goals that reflect who you are and who you're becoming. Systems that support your values and not just your obligations. That's why I talk about aligning your goals with your values. And this is where the idea of dream big, plan smart, live fully really comes into play. Dreaming big is about possibility because so many times we play it small. We don't look at everything that is out there and we think, well, what's possible? And so we do that rather than really what is going to excite us and move us. Plan smart is about the structure that we build, the systems that we put in place, because it's one thing to have a big dream and to run after that. But if we don't have a plan or a system in place, we can fail. And then living fully is about alignment. Again, aligning the goals that we set with the values that we have, the things that make us who we are deep down inside. When your goals are aligned with your identity, progress stops feeling forced. It begins to feel natural. Now, let me give you a few questions that I want you to sit with. You don't have to answer them right now. Maybe write them down and come back to them later. If you're in the car listening, don't write them down, but come back later and answer these questions. Does this goal still excite me? Or has it become something that I can complete on autopilot? Question number 2, does this goal reflect who I am or who I think I'm supposed to be? Question number 3, am I pursuing growth or just staying busy? Man, that is a question that I have had to ask myself many times. Am I just staying busy or am I pursuing growth? Question number 4, have I softened this goal so much that it no longer stretches me? If any of those questions make you feel even just a little bit uncomfortable, that's actually a good sign. That discomfort means that you're paying attention again. Let's go back to that waiting room for a second. The smooth jazz is there for a reason. It serves a purpose. It's meant to sit in the background. It's designed to be calm and pleasant and non-disruptive. But your goals were never meant to live in the background of your life. They're designed to stir something inside you. They are something that should require growth, that should be allowed to shape a different version of you. And here's the important distinction. They don't have to be louder. They don't have to be flashier. They just have to be clearer. Because when clarity comes back, energy follows. If you've been feeling plateaued or unfocused or like you're capable of more, you are. And it might not be your effort that's holding you back. It might be your dilution. I didn't say delusion, dilution, right? Maybe somewhere along the way that goal once meant something, but it's gotten softened until it faded into the background. So here's one simple challenge for you this week. Pick a goal, just one. It can be a professional goal, personal goal, or a purpose-driven goal. But ask yourself, is this still playing at full volume in my life, or has it become background noise? You don't need more discipline. You might just need to turn the volume back up. And if you're ready to do that, I would love for you to book a free 20-minute strategy call with me. I'd love to hear about your goals. I'd love to hear about the goals that used to move you, but now are just sort of there in the background. They've faded a little bit, or they've been forgotten altogether. And there's a link in the show notes. And you can book time on my calendar. It's only 20 minutes. It's absolutely free. There's nothing else that you will have to do. But it may be the thing, that 20 minutes may be the thing that turns your goals around and gets you back to the point where they're not just recognizable, but they actually get you excited again and move you. So before we end this episode, let's recap what we've covered today. I shared that quiet moment of realization in a doctor's waiting room, courtesy of smooth jazz. The songs I was hearing were familiar but not recognizable. They were still technically good, but they had been softened to the point where they faded into the background. And the realization was this: that's exactly what can happen to our goals, not because we stop caring, not because we lose ambition, but because over time we make them safer, more practical, more manageable until they stop stretching us. We talked about how easy it is to dilute a goal without even noticing. We trade excitement for comfort, growth for predictability, momentum for maintenance. We also looked at why this happens. It's the fear of failure or the fear of disappointment, not wanting to disrupt our routines, maybe wanting to stay in what feels responsible and realistic. These are all very human reasons and maybe even responsible. But safe goals rarely lead to transformation. Real progress starts when our goals are aligned with who we are and who we're becoming. They're not louder, they're not flashier, they're just clearer, more honest, more alive. So if there's one thing that I want you to take away from this episode, it's this. If you've been feeling stuck or plateaued, it might not be a discipline issue. It might just be that one of your goals has gotten too quiet to lead you anywhere. So this week, take a few minutes, look at that one goal in your life, ask if it still excites you, if it still stretches you, if it still reflects the person that you're trying to become. And if it doesn't, maybe it's time to turn the volume back up. All right? Well, that's it for the show today. Thank you so much for being here. Check out the show notes, holisticproductivity.com/47. Make sure you're subscribed on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube. Like, follow, subscribe, all of those things. And you'll get the next episode as soon as it drops on Tuesday. Also, if you don't mind, I'd love to have you rate the show if you found it valuable. I'd love to see that. I like seeing 5 stars. So go ahead and rate the show again on whatever platform you follow this on. And be sure to follow at Wholistic Productivity on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, LinkedIn, YouTube, Substack, all the social medias. Great productivity tips throughout the week, motivation, things to keep you on that path, things to keep your goals right in front of you and so that they have not faded into the background. I mentioned at the beginning, Holistic Productivity Community on School. Check it out. Link is in the show notes. Love to see you there. And again, thank you so much for listening in. I'm glad that you are putting this time, investing it into your goals and your life. As I always say, my goal with this podcast and really everything that I do with Holistic Productivity is to help you dream big, plan smart, and live fully. So we'll see you next time. Take care.